right, good evening, everyone. Want to apologize for the delay, but we thank you so much for being patient with us this evening as we get started on tonight's awesome event. Welcome to the Chicago Public Library. My name is Mariela Colon, and I work for the Civic, Cultural, and Literary Engagement Department. I'm so pleased we are able to partner with Women and Children First Bookstore to host this seriously awesome event. I would like to remind everyone that there are books for sale outside the auditorium, and the author will sign at the conclusion of the program. Please remain seated at the conclusion, and we'll call you up row by row for the autographs. A friendly reminder to please silence your cell phones. And with that, I'm pleased to welcome H. Melt to the stage to get our event started.
Hello, Chicago. My name is H. Melt, and I work at the feminist bookstore, Women and Children First. We are proud to be co-hosting this event with Chicago Public Library and the staff here at Harold Washington. Thank you so much for working with us to make tonight possible. We have an incredible lineup for you in celebration of When We Were Sisters, the debut novel. The first novel by poet, filmmaker, screenwriter, and Scorpio, Fatimah Asghar. When We Were Sisters, if you didn't know, was longlisted for the National Book Award. And the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize. Joining Asghar tonight are fellow writers, artists, poets, and friends. Hanif Abdurraqib, who is Ohio's favorite living writer. And the anniversary edition of They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us in hardcover just came out. We have it here tonight if you want to get it signed. We also have for you Kaveh Akbar. Who recently announced he has a debut novel of his own forthcoming. So look out for that. We also have Krista Franklin, who is a mentor to Fati and many of the people reading here tonight. And she currently has an art exhibit at the DePaul Museum of Art, so go check that out. And lastly, we have two of Asghar's fellow Dark Noise members, Danez Smith, who is the author most recently of Homie and unofficial poet laureate of Minnesota. And last but certainly not least, Jamila Woods. And Jamila, as you all know, carries Chicago's artistic legacy into the future. So just a little bit about the format tonight. We'll hear short readings from everyone. There will be a conversation between Fati and Jamila, and then there will be a book signing at the end of the evening at the table up front, as was mentioned earlier. Again, we have books right outside. If you have not already purchased, you will be able to get that signed and personalized. If you need to leave, we also have some pre-signed copies available in limited quantities as well. I'm going to say a few words about the novel, and then I will turn over the stage to our first reader, Danez. I'm going to try and make Fati cry, but it's probably not going to work. When We Were Sisters is a novel full of heart. A story that holds the messiness of grief, reckoning, survival, growth, and healing within the families we inherit and the ones we make for ourselves. The novel, like Fati, is a shapeshifter. In this book, Asghar transfers their skills as a poet and filmmaker to the novel form, and their voice shines through, creating new artistic forms of their own. When We Were Sisters and Asghar's work more broadly cannot be confined. They intentionally break the form of the novel, bend it out of shape, and stretch it in the name of layered and complex storytelling. Asghar teaches us that there is freedom in shape-shifting. Fati, this is what it feels like to have a family. See? I love you. I'm so proud of you. And thank you for this novel, your gifts, presence, and the great care you take in depicting multiple truths. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
Hello, everybody. Can we give a round of applause for H-Mel for that beautiful introduction? I hope you all got a copy of this book. This is expensive, but it's good. It's worth it. It's worth every drop. Shout out to that paperback coming out in a year. I'm gonna get like 8 of those, but I can only get like 2 of these max, for the taxes. Okay. So in honor of When We Were Sisters, I'm gonna read a couple of. I'll just take this thing off. Oh, my pearl. I'll grab it. I see it. It'll be got. All right, I'm going to a concert later, so I want to look fuckable when I get there. Cool. All right, cool. So I'm gonna read 2 poems that are like some of like stories from like my own like families, both born and chosen, to bring us in. This one is about my grandfather, who is a complicated but beloved man. It's called "I Miss That Negro." Though I don't know if he'd love me or what I'd lie about to be loved, but I like to think we'd be cool. And sometimes I'd call him after I knew he was up and ask, "Nigga, what you doing?" And he'd say, "Shit, nigga, sleep." And we'd holler over all the mannish nothings he was told to hush up about round a smaller me, and what cancer looted we'd have. A few strolls and new grudges, maybe his hard learning of the fag he prophesized and believed cured, or maybe he knew before he went unknowable. Maybe if the prostate had shrank instead of molded, he would have got it right, even a decade or 2 of not beating his wife, or maybe he would have again, and you know what? We'd love him. You can knock your father across the jaw, test the barrel to his neck, and be bubble gut giddy about the nigga in the same weekend. I know this. I've tested the theory. I know it's empty, warm logic. I hated my beloved. The women he beat for 40 years won't let you say shit bad about him, but a good man. She is of a God that confuses and nourishes and imprisons me. He is a good man he is in a good man's hell, serving a good man's sentence. Hate that marriage means you both plot your escape and love's murder. Hate, he taught me that. Our local and occasional evil, our shelter and from which we fled, a father, a country. I plotted his death in the dark of Sundays. I'd kill the world to kiss him. All right. All right, and the second one, so some of us were at a wedding this summer, and like very drunkenly the night before the wedding, somebody was like giving one of those like emotional at the bar like wedding speeches, and they were like, so much that young black men have to go through these days, gay, transgender, gang banging, and I was really obsessed with that list of of like, cool, did not expect gang banging at the end of those. And so, like any poet who hears some weird shit, I wrote about it. All right, tight. This poem's called Colorado Springs. She's crying for all of us, her brother, son, me, everyone, someone's boy. Before the wedding, Henny wrecked, loved well, loved whelmed, meaning well. So much, she says, black boys go through these days. Gay, transgender, gang banging. I know what she means. I try to not be criminalized. I know she doesn't see us as crimes, maybe sins, but since to her. Since I know my own mother, I know she means the bodies we didn't think our sons would lay down, the men we never imagined would seek our sons in the night, our boys, dressed in those colors, monochrome and prison strained, flagging what we hoped would never find them. I know when I pressed my purple stone to my mother's breast, what flooded her wasn't disgust, but sickness, knowing what violences might rush her once blue babe, now cut pink, meat red as honesty, those blood-ill premonitions, love, their own bodies, other boys, other boys, all mothers know anything can hunt a son, a fear so animal language cannot tame nor reason. Later, before the wedding, in the woods at the mountain's feet, my love points out a mushroom that looks like a coin. It do, earthy currency, a metal soft and chewable, fragile platinum. Even if I was Mother Earth, I wouldn't expect this wild change. Fleshy and star bright steel bloom, I wouldn't know it grew like this too. Dirt rising into armor, she didn't know we grow up fine. My mother loves her purple child deeper and truer, even though what she feared would scar me left its mark. I know she meant well. I know love shoots beyond language or sense. Mothers, if we make it through it all. Love, find our sons. Body, hold our babies well. Free them from all cages, even if it's what we named them. Violence, don't lust after our boys and call it kin. If you must, find our babies in the midst of their lives. Please leave a wound we can dress, and may we not be the scars they nurse, lonely and the mother gone dark. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kaveh. Thank you so much for coming out to celebrate Fati. And thank you, Danez. You're truly a one of one. That was extraordinary. Can we clap again for Danez? Yeah. Fati is the first person I ever heard talk about community as a medium. And they're also the person at whose feet I sit to watch it being practiced, right? To watch that medium being practiced by an expert practitioner, right? The ways that you build and create out of community has always been a kind of lodestar to me. Watching you do it with intention and consciousness across human experience, but also across aesthetic experience, right? Like making poetry within a community and lifting up the work of others around your own, right? Making collaborative work like, you know, Brown Girls and, you know, and like the work that you do on screen, right? But these are all like inherently community-based media, you know, like you write a poem and then you can show it to, you know, it looks like a poem after like an hour or two, right? And so there's like, and then screenwriting is sort of inherently collaborative, right? It takes a lot of people to make that vision come true. And so when I heard you were working on a novel, I was like, oh man, that's like a lonely thing for someone who spends so much time in intentional community. And then reading it, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. I don't know if y'all can see this, but like, it's like, you really dug, you know what I mean? And it's like, you spent that alone time, right? And it's like, it's so indelibly inflected by your singular and unprecedented wanting for amongness in the world. You can feel that in in each of the sisters, right, differently, and it's manifest differently in each of the, but it's like everywhere apparent, right? And I'm just so proud of you. Like, I'm just so proud of you, and I have learned from you since the day that we met, since before we met, you know, I've been learning from you, and I'm like getting all fucked up. It's so affirming, like literally affirming, like this is a thing that can be done this well, right? It's possibility making, and I'm so honored to get to be alive to witness your making it. I'm gonna, I'm just gonna read one poem. It's called The Miracle. It orbits the revelation of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad, and Fatih was reading with me the first time I ever read it in front of anyone. It was like at this like yucky AWP thing, but there were like a million friends like literally like climbing in through the windows and stuff, and it was like this really, Hanif was there, it was this really incredible reading, and yeah, I don't know. What? Well, just the AWPE-ness of it all, you know, like the fluorescent lighting and the density of aspirational energy, like the, you know, you know what I mean, like the humans in that room was like totally lovely reading, right? It's just the AWP-ness of it all. I'm gonna read a poem. This is called The Miracle. Gabriel seizing the illiterate man, alone and fasting in a cave and commanding, "Read." The man saying, "I can't." Gabriel squeezing him tighter, commanding, "Read." The man gasping, "I don't know how." Gabriel squeezing him so tight he couldn't breathe, squeezing out the air of protest, the air of doubt, crushing it out of his crushable human body, saying, "Read in the name of your Lord who created you from a clot." And thus, literacy, revelation. It wasn't until Gabriel squeezed away what was empty in him that the prophet could be filled with miracle. Imagine the emptiness in you, the vast cavities you have spent your life trying to fill with fathers, mothers, lovers, language, drugs, money, art, praise, and imagine them gone. What's left? Whatever you aren't, which is what makes you. A house useful not because it's floorboards or ceilings or walls, but because the empty space between them. Gabriel isn't coming for you. If he did, would you call him Jibril or Gabriel like you are here? Who is this even for? One crisis at a time. Gabriel isn't coming for you. Cheese on a cracker, a bit of salty fish. Somewhere a man is steering a robotic plane into murder. Robot from the Czech robota, meaning forced labor, murder labor, forced. He never sees the bodies which are implied by their absence, like feathers on a paper bird. Gabriel isn't coming for you. In the absence of cloud parting, trumpet blaring clarity, what? More living, more money, lazy sex, mother, brother, lover. You travel and bring back silk scarves, a bag of chocolates for you don't know who yet. Someone will want them. Deliver them to an empty field. You fall asleep facing the freckle on your wrist. Somewhere, a woman presses a button that locks metal doors with people behind them. The locks are useful to her because there is an emptiness on the other side that holds the people's lives in place. She doesn't know the names of the people. Anonymity is an ancillary feature of the locks. Ancillary from the Latin ancilla, meaning servant, an emptiness to hold all their living. You created from a clot. Gabriel isn't coming for you. You too full to eat. You too locked to door, too cruel to wonder. Gabriel isn't coming. You too loved to love, to speak, to hear, too wet to drink. No, Gabriel, you too pride to weep. You too play to still. You too high to come. No, Gabriel won't be coming for you. Too fear to move, too pebble to stone. You too saddle to horse, too crime to pay. Gabriel, no, not anymore. You too gone to save, too bloodless to martyr, too diamond to charcoal, too nation to earth. You brute, cruel pebble. Gabriel, God of man, no, cheese on a cracker. Mercy, mercy.
There were stairs there. Of the two ways, I chose the most difficult. Surely not a metaphor. It's so good to be here. And thank you, H. Melt, for that, really, those kind words. As much as I would love to be Ohio's favorite living writer, I am of the belief that Miss Morrison lives forever. And so I will, I'll warm the bench. Any bench left behind by her is the best bench. Listen, I think even naming the designation of chosen family suggests both choosing and being chose, so to speak. And I am someone who is of the belief that that choosing begins before you even realize it is happening. And for me, that means that I believe that all of us are born with an incredible capacity to love someone. And whether or not that person enters your life, that capacity is still there. And you are fortunate if that person enters your life because you are ready-made to love them as well as you can. And I think what I'm trying to say is that, you know, Fati is one of my dearest siblings because while I, of course, have had a life where I was not loved by Fati and did not love Fati, I do not wish to recall any plot line of my life wherein I was not loved by Fati. And I think that is the most resonant thing I can say about her presence in my life. And I also want to say that I've just learned so much from Fati about how to, on the topic of choosing and being chose, I've learned so much from Fati about how to thoughtfully choose the people you love and how to thoughtfully love the people you choose. And I would not trade learning that for anything. So thank you, Fati. I also want to say I was asked to blurb. Well, I did blurb the book, but I was not going to. Not because I obviously wanted to support the book, but there was a point where I was like, I hadn't read it yet when I got the ask, and inherently I was like, I think there's a high probability that I'm not going to have language for, you know, blurbs are so, and I get it, like I get the business of blurbing books. I enjoy blurbing books. Please don't ask me to tonight. But, I was like, I have a hard time. I hadn't read the book yet, but I was like, there's going to be a problem here because there's going to be a lot of affection I have, not only for the achievement. Like, I don't want to talk about this book only as an achievement by someone I love. It's also an achievement of writing. And I was very worried. I was like, I got to fit. They were like, yeah, like 100 words. I was like, oh, well, you're going to have to live with more. Make the book bigger. I don't know. But I'm so, so proud of you, and I'm so glad that I was born with the capacity to love you well, and I'm so glad that our lives intersected so that I could live out that capacity. I'm going to read 2 poems. This poem's first line is also the title. Watching the notorious B.I.G.'s funeral procession for the 17th time, I can't help but notice the white wings of the dove, and its aimless twirling above the black whips pouring slow down the block, and the wrists occasionally flung from their tinted windows, white diamonds ascending towards the off-white sky, and in a moment, no longer than the exit of a half-drawn breath, the dove finds itself above a car with its trunk open and overrun with a chorus of soft white roses, and it is here, I swear, I cannot tell where the feathers end and the petals begin, to say nothing of the chorus, to say nothing of the clouds, which in this joyous exhale of a second are delighting in the marriage of all this fluorescent white, high-stepping down the aisles and locking fingers with the smoke blown from the mouths of black folks bouncing atop the cop cars and shaking the fences of the check-cashing spot. There are the graves we do not dance upon, but they are certainly not these. And there are two black boys dangling out of a high-rise window, their mouths open and dark as solar systems, their hands pointing in awe at this confluence of small and clumsy heavens, stumbling towards one another, perhaps as in awe as I am now, or as I was then, when the dope boys came back to the block in summer, and their white car doors flung towards the sky, a fleet of divine hunting birds lined up along the basketball courts, Biggie's voice pummeling the wall of humid air. The song says, somebody gotta die, but doesn't say who. Doesn't say where, doesn't name the street people will push their closed fists into while the wheels of a hearse stumble along a plague of potholes. The song suggests death as necessity. Be grateful there is still enough earth to be buried under and a set of hands that might love you enough to do the digging. The casket weighs the same no matter who rests inside of it. I propose that death itself is the weight, which is what you might say to me now to make sense of why I cannot lift the box that holds what is left of your ashes, but easily raise you on my shoulders when we are young and light as feathers, stretching up towards the branches and taking what we could from abandoned nests. I've worked away from prefacing poems, but I do think this one deserves a tiny preface. When I was a kid, when I was like 12 when No Scrubs came out, and I felt very indicted by it, despite the fact that that song was speaking to a much older person than me. But it's because I could do like a craft talk on No Scrubs, but like the direct address in the song, and like the final act of the song where they're like, if you live at home talking to you know, because like for the first 2-3 acts of the song, you're like, oh, the Scrubs could be anyone, anywhere. But then at the end, it's like, no, these motherfuckers are me. I was like on my school bus, and that song came on the radio. I was like, I don't have a car. I was like 12. It's like, so I felt like violently indicted by No Scrubs when I was like living at home with my parents because I was fortunate enough to be able to when I was 12. Anyway, I've been writing these poems called No Scrubs that all kind of turn back towards those indicting moments, and so this is one I don't even like saying in response to because it's not actually a response. This is one that is joyfully inspired by the line, if you live at home with your mama. This poem's called No Scrubs. Woefully unprepared for the world's newest undressing, I hang 2 hands out the passenger while heavy clouds draw a knife along the sky's throat and the roads beg to be slid upon, death be damned. I ride shotgun in any machine that will hold my heart while it writhes like a snake pulled from its resting place, cursing the distance between a mouth and a target. Shotgun, named after who might sit close to someone who holds something precious and fire off a weapon to protect the person they did not love but could be convinced to kill in the name of. And beneath the percussion of a fingers quivering along a trigger's vicious grin is something I believe to be not far from love. I am not a killer, but there are those who I would kill for, and the kingdom of heaven has a home for that kind of devotion. The only God I pray to understands loyalty in one sense, a commitment to undoing what might undo you, a halo of dark birds circling a hunting dog at the end of a hungry and shadeless season, the dog surrendering to the violence of the heat and the heat itself, which arrives to settle a score and never leaves, laughs at our sighs thrown into the ever-thickening darkness. I was once foolish enough to think myself among the circling birds and never among the dying. I say, I know I was fly and mean. I believe the weapon that would be the end of me hadn't been invented yet. The roads wet and damned to death. I swear, if I love you, or if I have loved you, or if I have ever heard a song or watched a moon twirl into a blood-red gown and thought of your name, or if you've been dead for so long that I can remember your laugh but not your voice, if I had to conduct an imaginary symphony of your once living sounds that now run through the cracks in my fingers like vengeful wind, even then, I swear, I am beside you and reaching a hand across the flimsy partitions between this world and whatever world comes after. Try to holler into the expanse of terror along the road between apocalypse and aftermath. See what echoes back. Memory is the home you earn until you can't anymore. I whisper my mother's name into my cupped hands in every room I enter. Everywhere is my mother's house.
I just want to say, first of all, hello, hi, hi. And I want to also just say thank you so much to Fatima for inviting me to be a part of this incredible event, celebrating her in this beautiful novel. I hope y'all, if y'all don't have this novel, make sure that you get this novel. If you don't get it tonight, make sure that you get it this week or next week or the week after. Buy it for friends, buy it for gifts for your family members. I mean, just continue to purchase it and support it. I read the last page of that novel just this week and sobbed, just broke down and sobbed, because it's just so beautifully, extraordinarily written, you know? I love a first novel. I love a coming-of-age novel, and I think that Fatima, what she's done with that form, the experiments that she's making, the experiments that they are making with that work is absolutely phenomenal. So I hope that you all delve into it. I hope that you take it home with you. I hope that you rest with it. I can't speak, if I speak at length, as Fati's friends have come up here and done tonight, I will be weeping. I'm going to contain myself because this is not an event about me crying. This is a celebration. We're going to stay in that spirit tonight, okay? But I will say that one thing that we keep hearing over and over again is love, 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 love. Some people walk that, some people talk it, you know? And Fati is one of the individuals in this world who walks it, truly. Unconditional love, you know, and I have learned so much from them in the process of knowing them in my lifetime. And I'm very, very grateful to be a part of this night. So that's what I want to say. I'm going to read a couple of things very quickly so that we could get on to the real celebration of this night and hear this conversation around this novel. That's what we're here for. So I'm going to read a part of a poem, a longer poem. I'm just going to read two parts of that poem called Black Freedom Nebula, a Meditation. And then I'm going to read these shorter poems that are called Geophagia. Black Freedom Nebula, a Meditation has some other lines, as I'm known to do, other lines from other writers, other musicians. So you'll hear some echoes of things throughout here. Black Freedom Nebula, a Meditation. 2, Deep Space, Sirius A. In the beginning, black was born, an inky spread across the circumference of sky freckled with glittering rocks that surfaced from the cavern of her. Black became bored and birthed the universe for entertainment, the first TV, a projection of her imagination. What are the sounds of light? One late morning, black got gas and belched the sun. A ball of fire suspended in black. Black picked her fro and stars scattered a symphony of hiss and wink in her wake. She thought all children should have mothers and form the moon from cooling lava. Flick from the sun's surface, you can't make this shit up. Black was so beastie, she birthed an immeasurable universe. Black dirty wine to the singing rings of Saturn and broke a sweat so wet, it birthed a billion water bodies. Sirius B. Have you ever heard of a child who's never seen a star? All light, man-made, and unmagnificent. No doubt. Edison stared into the sky for inspiration, how to harness luminescence, drag the moon into living rooms. Once, there was an epileptic who used a star as a GPS, led an entire people to liberation. Even enslaved folks fell in love, wore the night as camouflage and snuck off to touch, tender in the blue bruise of inhumanity. Space is not the place, but even now, there is a child trapped at a border, his eyes turned up to the borderless, using a constellation as comfort. If you want to find deep space, go inward. There is no more mystifying place than your mind, the final frontier between your ears. The ocean of your body sways with the moon, the wombs of women everywhere, hypnotized by her call. What is the gravitational pull of blackness? The dusky matter of you is stardust. Minuscule scatter from the sky. You want to run the universe, but can't even converse in universe. Every breathing thing you want to bridle and bend the knee, build walls and bulldoze, drill into and fire hose. If I say Dracarys, will white privilege burn to dust? Mother Earth is pregnant for the 5th time, for y'all have knocked her up. The extraterrestrials peek through holes in the ozone, whisper about the bullies of the galaxy, the earthlings who measure time in dollar signs, who speak in tongues of barcodes and blood spill. What is the spell for invisibility? Thank you all so much. So this is the last little section that I'll read and scatter on off into my own little realms to enjoy the rest of this beautiful celebration. Geophagia. Geophagia is the practice of eating earth or soil-like substances. When I was a kid, I used to eat dirt. And I really, started to think a lot about that as a piker. I didn't realize at the time I probably had a piker. And my father's people are from Gullah country. So, it's probably not so far removed that it's probably in my ancestral line to be a dirt eater. So I wanted to write about this concept of, having this thirst for earth. At 2, I chose clumps of dirt from the nursery floor at story time. Cross-legged, I knew the words, secret, a ritual, sacrament between tiny fingers, a wafer in a holy hand. I slide the morsel between my lips when no one is looking. Let it dissolve to mud, coat my tongue. Moist dirt is easy to swallow. Take it from me. Take it from me. This hunger for earth. Chew grass, bite flesh, rub grit against the pink roof of mouth, immoral mastication. Each day, the earth takes a piece back. So slow, you're stunned to discover its mouth around your head. A constrictor swallowing a mouse. Dust to dust. Deep inhale of ocean, altar, almost succinct. A sea floods the caves of a face that sputters to surface, half hysterical, giddy with survival. A wave draws back to slap. They say when mermaids drag their lovers to the sea, it's not the drowning that does him, it's her. Bone-breaking embrace. Tongue to your hard palate, soft soil, dark inhale. An embrace that breaks your bones. Can you imagine the Santa Maria's appetite? Every body puckered wood, salt drawn and seasick. How does it feel to be unearthed? There were men who stumbled from the deck, salt-crusted crystalline, to kiss earth and cry. I can see them dig filthy fingers deep in sand, only to scoop a palm into their mouths like madmen. You don't know what it feels like to thirst earth. Your bones a ripple of cracks.
Hi. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to H-Melt for that beautiful introduction. Thank you. Like I literally am sitting here like I did my makeup and now I'm crying and I'm like, oh no. But honestly, like I could not have written this novel or any of the work that I make without all of the people who read before me and who I'm so humbled and lucky to be familyed by. Danez, my sibling, who, you know, one of the first times that me and Danez met, you said this thing where you were like, I write to get the shame out. And to see you like at that place and to see you now as like who you are in your full entirety is so beautiful to me. And Kav and Hanif, my darling siblings from Team Mashallah, you both are like just in your, I can't, you know, like we say like chosen family, like you guys are my family. And Kav, you've taught me so much about grace and so much about forgiveness and just the way that you move in the world and the humility that you walk with is just so stunning to me and such a model for what I want to be. And Hanif, the way that you are with community and the way that you just like love your city and your folks and everybody who like comes into your world with such abundance is so, so magnificent. And Krista, Krista is like, I've known Krista for so long and, you know, first was just, I remember like the first time when me and Jamila lived together and in Chicago and we invited you to our house and we were so nervous. We were like, Krista Franklin's coming to our house and we like cooked, we like pulled out our best recipes. We were like, we're gonna just try and like we had like barefoot wine at our house. We were just like, Krista's coming to our house and that you would just be so generous in being friends with us and like all throughout this process, the amount of times that I like thought I couldn't write the book and I would call you and you would just be like, write it any way you can. Like if it comes out in scribbles, it comes out in scribbles, and how much permission it gave me to write this book and how I just felt like you were just so anchoring the whole time in writing this. And H-Melt too, the amount of times that we talked, like we'd go on walks and then just like sit down and talk about this book and your book and our work and just how like that fueled me to be able to write this. And then to Jamila, like one of the greatest loves of my life. I'm so, so grateful for you. And I know that like truly you were in it with me in the trenches for this. And I think that you're such a bright presence to every single room that you walk into and all of the work that you make. And I just feel really grateful that all of you guys are in my life. So thank you so much. I'm going to read 3 things from this book, and then me and Jamila are going to have a conversation. The thing that you need to know is that it's mostly told through the perspective of Kosar, who is the youngest sibling of 3, and both their parents have died, and their eldest sister is Noreen, and the middle one is Aisha. Orphans, the aunties say, and we become something new. No longer a daughter, no longer my father's kid, but an orphan. Our mom is dead too, gone before I could speak. No one talks about her or how she died. Our dad, the only parent we knew, now orphaned. Each aunt touches her hand to my head to get her sawab. My head, now a home for palms. Everyone's unwashed fingers comb through my hair. Some of them grab at my forehead, their nails pressing into my skin as though they'll get extra by prying it open. The wailing in the room so loud it touches Allah. The wailing signaling Jannah so that the announcement can be known. There are orphans here, orphans that need to be cared for. Clothe them, feed them, be kind to them. They point to the Quran. Clothe them. I look down at the pink dress I've been wearing for 3 days, poofed up like a princess. Feed them. My fingers sticky with popsicle. Be kind to them. The hands pushing into my forehead. The new thing I am, taking hold of all my other names. As long as there have been gods, there has been neglect. All our flawed gods run around, birth the earth, and then forget us. Skip off with each other, talking about God things, annoyed with the banality of our humanness. I gave you life, they say, when we complain, as they crush the tobacco into the betel leaf, adding syrup on top, and I can take it away. Their yellow teeth, gnashing, and us, ungrateful humans, fold our knees a few times a day and expect the world to be handed to us. I made the earth turn, again, they say, tired, home from work with a bag of groceries. But you didn't play with us, we say, and they roll their eyes, get in their blue Cadillacs and drive away, go back down the street to their own apartments where they don't have to think about us. Grow more trees from seeds, let them branch out to the sky. How righteous our small rages. See me, we yell. God has to work today, they say, from behind their computers, the dull glow on their faces annoyed. We want softness, we say, and turn away from the field of sunflowers that lush their yellow. Power, we say, and a volcano explodes. Strength, and the trees root in their trunks. Touch, and the sand clings to our feet. Allah has forgotten me, I whisper in my bunk alone, and I don't notice the moon shining her light on my pillow, reaching. Before we worshipped one God, we worshipped trees. Yes, there was the moon, always the moon. But don't forget about the trees. The banyans, their winding, weeping, walking ways, where our ancestors live. They grow in the crevices, in the places we overlook. A single tree in a maze of branches, making a whole forest of itself, a family all its own. Ribbons dangling from stems, blowing pink in the wind. Prayers stack on prayers, a million prayers over thousands of years, prayers that sing when you touch the bark. The trees sing to each other across the borders, across the villages, their constant chatter, their gupshup. They family each other, even when a border is drawn between them, even when one tree lies, even when one tree wants space, a galaxy of their own, even when a jinn takes hold of one tree's leaves. They love each other, the trees. They root down, they root towards each other, their boughs digging into the ground below, feeding the earth, the young replacing the old, a loop that loops forever. All the siblings wrapped around each other, sister branches stealing each other's clothes, brother branches snuggled against the parents annoyed and tired, complaining about money, the fuck-up uncle on his same fuck shit, the not-quite brother, not-quite sister branches venturing outwards, the elder branches holding the frame in place before dying off, before flowing back into the earth, before becoming something new. Thank you, guys. Are these on? Okay. I think they're on already.
It's working? Oh, give it up one more time for Fati. It's not fair. I have to say my nice things looking at you, so it really is not going to work out. But I'm just so grateful for you and for the ways that our friendship has shape-shifted to become whatever it needs to be in the moment. And I'm so honored that you asked me to have this conversation with you, because that's how we met, figuring out how we were going to see some spoken word poetry. Would anyone go with me? And I hope that we can always be each other's people, that we can be the first ones to see things and hold each other through the processes of bringing things into the world. So thank you. I'm really happy that you read those sections, because one of the questions that came into my mind as I was reading was about the role of nature and the natural world in the book, and how the moon is like a character, the trees that are on the sidewalk and the banyan trees. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about why you chose to incorporate nature in that way.
Yeah. So for me, I grew up like in a city, and I didn't spend a lot of time in nature. And I always had this thing where it was like, oh, nature, that's for white people. Like I really had that mentality for most of my life. And then I think that like in part of even writing this book was how much time I needed to spend in nature, and how much time I needed to spend in quietness, and how much I felt like in the healing of like my own life and things, that the wounds that were coming up for me, like it felt like nature was like, hey, we're here, like we got you. And I think that I'm Muslim, and in Islam, like the moon is very, very prominent, and also like so is the natural world. And when I think about a lot of the cultures that many of us in this room probably come from, there's a tie-in to nature and the natural world that I think being in the West has sometimes tried to eliminate, and has tried to move away from. And part of, for me, writing this and bringing out nature was that tie-in to spirituality, and the tie-in to how much nature has to offer as a relief, and how much nature has to offer when you learn to work with it and see it in a different way. And so even that idea of like, how can you be alone when you're always with the earth? Like, how can you be alone when like all of this is so here and it's so wanting you to pay attention to it? And just how much I've learned about that over the last, few years, and particularly in writing this book.
I love that. And I think, like Kav was mentioning, the inherent aloneness that comes with writing a novel in particular. So I was wondering if you could speak to, because you're a poet and a filmmaker, and you've talked about writing this novel as being one of the most challenging but also rewarding things you've ever done. And I'm curious, were there any gifts that came with the form of a novel in terms of writing about some of these themes that you've explored before, but in this way?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the novel gave it longevity. So it gave it the ability to have a narrative structure, and to really fall in love with the characters who populate this book, and to show the complexity of what it means to be human in some of these characters. Because I think that a lot of them are like all of us. If we really truly meet ourselves, they're not perfect, and they're very messy, and they cause harm, and they are in grief, and they are in their trauma, and they do things that are messed up to each other. And to me, that is like really deeply a part of being human, is like seeing that, and then also being like, and how do we still like love with that? Like, how do we still kind of move into that? And I think that kind of spacing of the novel gave it that ability to really follow different characters over incredibly different moments of their life. And I think about even like the main protagonist that this book is really about, Kosar, is like you meet this child when they're 5, you know, and you end when they're 27, and they're a very different person when they're 27 than at any point. And you see the ways that they still are the same, but you also see the ways that trauma has affected them, and you see the ways that they've just changed. And I think that, to me, like if you look at any one of our lives and you really look at like all of these different pivotal moments, we're all different people in those moments. And I think that the novel really gave it the ability to have that breadth of difference.
Yes, I love that. And I think too, when I think about the relationships within because there's 3 sisters that the novel follows, and I saw a post recently about how, you know, with siblings, you can experience the same family very differently. And I think one of the, you know, because you could have literally, your parents are different people at different times. And so the guardian figure, the uncle in the novel, I think the way that the novel is from Kosar's perspective, we have a different view of him because of their particular relationship. So I wonder if you could talk about why you chose to portray the sort of who could be considered a villain character in such a complex way through Kosar's eyes.
Yeah, I think that, like, you know, when I think about that, when you go from like one relationship to another and you're like, yeah, I was probably a really different person in that relationship because I like was learning how to relate to people still. Like I was learning these skills, and then in this relationship I can incorporate them and I can be different. And so that thing that you were saying about like how parents can be different to different siblings because of where they're at in their life is so true. And also because everything is relational. Like everything brings out different things in people. And so you're able to have, you know, you can't transfer a relationship. You can't just say like, well, I'm friends with this person, so you should be friends with them. Like it's a thing of like, you can introduce people, but there's always a relationship that needs to be built between everything and everyone, and what is brought out in them. And so with Kosar, like Kosar's the youngest, and, you know, is also in some ways the one that isn't the protector of the siblings, you know, against the uncle from, you know, survival and family. And so is able to have a different relationship with the uncle than either of their other 2 siblings. And there's also, you know, a way where because of that, they're able to have these peaks and these windows into the uncle where he tells them things that he wouldn't tell the other siblings, you know, and they're moments of vulnerability. And I think for me, like, the idea that anyone is monstrous is hard for it's a very difficult concept for me to like sit with or think about. And I think it's because when we call people monsters, they cease to be human, and then we also make them something that we can't ever exist in the same capacity with us. And so for me, it was really important to like be like, what are the moments of humanness with this uncle? Like, what are the moments with this character? Like, what are the moments where we see that Kosar is like, oh, maybe we could have a family. Like, maybe you could be my, you know, parental figure. Maybe this could work. Because I think that feels like a much more rich place to explore from, rather than just like, oh, that person's evil. Like that person is like irredeemable to me.
Definitely. I really felt during reading the book like it was written by someone who was wanting me to pause and breathe. And I think a lot of that comes from like the fragmentation and the form. And so I wonder if you could speak to, you know, because you're a poet, so there's definitely that influence there, but I also wonder if you thought about it in terms of the experience that the reader would have, why you chose to structure it in that way.
Yeah, when I first started writing it, I was like, I don't think I could write a novel. It's so many words. Like, I don't know about that. And so I really was just like, we'll do what I can do, and then, you know, maybe here, and we'll pick up here, we'll do this thing here. So it really came because I was like, I can't do that. Like, it's just too much for me. And then, you know, but I think being a poet and the poet's attention is like, you are thinking about the reader's experience on the page. Like you are thinking about where the line ends and what it looks like, and are they going to have a moment to breathe, and how do we, in this moment that's really hectic, how can we slow it down on the page, or how can we increase it if we want it to feel like that? And so there's definitely, especially in those heightened moments around plot in the book, where I think that's often where there's a narrative, or there's a visual or poetic break in the novel, and it's because it's due with like an intention of what I hoped that the reader would have as they were experiencing it.
I love that. And I think you mentioned Douglas Kearney at the end of the book, and I was just, I don't read a lot of novels. I was reading your novel, but I don't know if it's normal for, because in poetry we cite our sources a lot. I don't know if that was normal, but I loved reading your acknowledgments because you have so many specific authors that you shout out for influencing in particular ways. So I wonder if you could speak to that choice to include that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in poetry, we have these complicated ideas, or not complicated, it's like literally we just cite our sources, and we say things like after, like this poem is after. And so in a book of poems, you can have so many sources that you're citing just by the that caveat of after Jamila, after Krista, after Hanif, like you just have that, and and then you have your acknowledgments at the end. So poetry really exists within a lineage. It's a lineaged form, and I think that all art is lineaged. I think all of it is, and yet we don't do that enough, and one of the things that was quite difficult for me when I started making film was I was like, how do you cite your sources? Like, how do you say, like, well, I'm influenced by this, or I'm whatever? And when I would talk to filmmakers, they were like, we don't do that. That doesn't exist. That's like not really a practice unless you're directly kind of like putting a scene, like, you're very clearly doing a reference to a scene, but then somebody could watch it and not know what that scene is and just think it was you. And so that was kind of wild to me, I was like, oh, what? And when I read Ross Gay's book, Beholding, and the acknowledgement section in that book, really, I was like, this is it. Like, this is how you say it. Like, I would rather have a 20-page acknowledgments that's like, here's every motherfucker that has ever, influenced me.
Yes, which you did.
then like not do that, because I'm like that. But that to me is like the idea, and I think particularly with this novel, there's the thing of like the aloneness. The novel is, as Kav said, like it's alone. You're alone, but there's also the aloneness of the characters because they're dealing with orphaning. And I think for me, it was really important to push against that in the acknowledgments and to say, this process was not alone. This process could not have been made without these people. This process was deeply influenced by everybody in front of me. And a lot of these motherfuckers I don't know, but I want to make sure that anyone who picks up my book knows their work.
I love that. I just have one more question. But just having watched the journey that you went on to create this beautiful book, I wonder if you could speak to how did you learn how to care for yourself through the process of writing it, and if you could give advice to yourself at the beginning, what would that be?
I think that there's a different, I come from poetry, and like in poetry, it's like, there's poems that are very difficult to write, there are books that are very difficult to write, and for me, so much of what was helpful in poetry was the community, was that you could read a poem at an open mic, you could read a poem to a friend, and they would be like, or they would listen. And I mean, we all are like that. Like, whenever one of my friends has a new poem, I'm like, but like, you can read this poem, you could be in community with each other, and you could, we started writing because, or not, you had been writing poetry longer than I had, but when we met, it was like, we were in college and we were at a basement of a theater and everybody sat in a circle and wrote together and then read their poems together. That's what we did every single Thursday. So to me, poetry was always a community act. It wasn't one that was like divorced from that. It wasn't one that was like you wrote whatever in the like cabin. Yeah, and I think that there was a lot of beauty that came from that because also at that moment in my life, I needed the validation of things that I couldn't say to anyone else. So poetry became the venue of the place that I could be who I really was and who I could be really honest. with the novel, that started to shift, and it was a thing where it was it was really solitary, but it was very, very emotionally hard. And so, it was also, so much of it was written in quarantine. And so we were having a really deep moment of isolation collectively. And I had already been, like, there had been so much isolation that had happened right before. And so the care practices had to increase. And I think what I found was I would just pray and I would be like, I need help. Like, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know that I don't know what my next step is. I don't know what my next line is. I don't know what the next word is. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And inevitably something would be revealed to me. Like, it would be like, okay, well, you're going to go do this thing. Well, now you're going to go do this thing. Well, now you're going to go do this thing. And often it was being in nature. Often it was things like therapy and things like meditation and things like a lot of energy work and stuff. But it was the way that it was working in tandem. It was always coming at a moment when I was like, I don't know what to do and I need help. And then the help would arrive. You know, it's in the Quran, they say, like, the intention arrived. And it's like when you say it, when you do the thing and you're like, I need this thing, it comes. It's like, here you, and it comes not in the way that you think it will come, you know, but it comes, and if you pay attention enough, it's there. And so the process of this book opened up a lot of care practices for me that I didn't have before, and it just really opened me in a way that I didn't have before. And I think it was because almost every day in writing this novel, I showed up and I was like, I don't know if I can do this, I need help. And then help would arrive, and help would arrive, and I would just follow that. And so if I were to give myself advice, I actually wouldn't, because I wouldn't have written the book if I knew what I was writing, you know? No way. And so I think that is in a lot of ways the kind of way that I feel about art in general, is that I feel like I make something and I don't know where it's gonna go, but I kind of am like, I have this idea and I want to do this thing. I come with a lot of joy and excitement in the beginning, and then I'm like, oh no, like, what am I doing? And it is that process for me that kind of allows me to do the work and to do it to go in really deep and to dig in really deep, because I think that if any of us knew how much effort it took to make art, a lot of us would be like,
Give up on.
yeah, I'm good, you know? And so it's kind of that suspension and that tricking. And what I would do too when I wrote this novel, sorry, I'm talking so much. What I would do, when I wrote this novel was I would be like, no one's gonna read it. No one's checking for this.
That's helpful though, right?
It's so helpful, because what it does is it gets you out of your own way, and it gets you to actually write the thing that you want to write versus the thing that everyone thinks that you should be writing. And so I think that inevitably, every time I show up to make something new, I always do that to myself, where I'm like, no one's really checking for it. No one's going to watch it. No one's going to do it. No one's going to do this thing. And then it allows me to do the thing that I really want to do.
I love that, the ways we can trick ourselves into writing whole novels. Thank you, Fati.
Thank you. Oh, I just want to take a photo of everyone. So if you guys could just smile, that would be great.
And we'll be calling you up row by row. Thank you.